source for cannabis culture, with a print magazine, radio show, live events, and so much more. Check them out online at 13folds.com. That's the number 13, folds.com.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain, I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Jones. You know, when I'm not here yakking about politics, I spin records. That's right, if you like good old-fashioned rock and roll radio the way God intended it to be, then tune in to The Tony Jones Show. The information's online at tonyjones.org. That's tonyjones.org.
Heading out on the town tonight? Be sure to log on to providencenightout.com and don't forget to check their cell phone app. That's providencenightout.com.
Your old pal Tony Jones here. You are tuned into the Coalition online at coalitionradio.us. Po-taxpayer, as the Coalition freight train continues, the only media outlet actually letting people talk. I know this is a novel concept, P.O., but we have guests in, and we let the guests talk.
Right. I mean, we all know what pedantic crap I believe in. We don't need to go over it again and again and again.
You want me to talk about our views when we don't have guests?
You want me to tell you about my weekend and how many hot wieners that I ate?
It's the navel-gazing that goes on amongst the major media, as it were.
Unfortunately, it is, I won't name any names, but people that we know, it's encroaching upon the alternative media, and it's getting depressing.
It is. You know, at what point in time do you become a parody of yourself? Unless, of course, in my case, I want to become a parody of myself. You know? In the words of one of my favorite philosophers, I resemble that remark. But we do have some, you know, we do have some additional people coming down the road to visit with us. If we could take a brief departure from Dr. Harrop. Am I allowed to ever call you Dr. Harrop?
There's a long story behind that.
Exactly. But next week in this show, we're joining us in the continuing cavalcade of candidates, crisscrossing the country.
I thought you were going to say Chris Young.
No.
Oh, dear.
We do have Frank Caprio joining us, candidate for treasurer, former candidate for governor, is going to be joining us, and we're going to spend 45, 50 minutes in-house, in station, just chatting about his vision. There's that, what would W call it? The vision thing. We're looking for people to have visions, and we refuse to handicap elections. We refuse to discuss fundraising here. We want to know, not if you're going to win, why you're going to win. And, you know, to have had people like Dawson Hodson, now Dr. Harrop, and folks like Frank Caprio coming in an open mic, kind of a living room environment, it's a lot of fun, and we look forward to it greatly. You know, there's so much that he can comment on right now. The pension situation, he was really the first to advance the notion that Houston, we have a problem. His successfully saving Rhode Island from the type of mortgage-backed security collapse at other municipalities and states. His reflections on having run as governor and what he sees as the vision for the state. Even, you know, as Ms. Raimondi tries to expand the scope of the office, what is the real nature of the general treasurer of Rhode Island? Is in one case, someone who also is running believes it's to be a chief accountant? Number two, it is to be a visionary and simply execute the investments of the state? Or are you supposed to growing it into this great social global scale like our current treasurer has? So we got a lot to talk about next week, and we're looking forward to it. Now, getting back to Dr. Harrop, we're talking about pilot programs. We're talking about the vision thing. Somewhere on the horizon, as I drove back into the city for the third time today, I don't live in Providence, I wish I could afford to, was this vast tract of land before me, kind of like fertile fields, waiting for something. And that, of course, would come under the purview of the much vaunted, much heralded, never talked about, never disclosed 195 Commission. You got any thoughts on the 195 Commission and what we should do with that land?
Well, at the moment, as a practical matter, they are putting in the infrastructure, obviously. There was no infrastructure there. There wasn't the proper plumbing and wires that needed to be put in. They're doing that, and they're beginning to now put out bids and the like. It hasn't been the most open process. It's got the Rhode Island smell of my friends are doing this and who's going to come in at this particular time. I don't have any preconceived notion about what should go there. I do think it needs to remain on the tax rolls. I am very much not in favor of further tax abatements in this city, tax forgiveness in this city because of where we stand at the present time. I don't have any preconceived notion of what should go there, and would leave it to the market.
The fact that, and we call him here the fallen angel, the fact that the fallen angel has stuffed the board.
You could probably use that in your campaign literature, Dr.
I'm not
Harrop.
running against him, though. That's the problem. Well, I'll mention that to Alan Fung.
Okay. Has stuffed it. You could call it the Friends of Buff Chase Committee. I mean, you really could. And we're going to get into another Buff Chase related, because there are days when I feel like it's all Buff all the time. But do you think that leads to the politics of perception, where ultimately we see this as nothing more than an insider's game to divvy up the plunder of what used to be Interstate 195 there?
And that's what I mentioned by it seems to be an insider's game, and got the whole whiff of what usually happens in Rhode Island, which is I have my friends do this, and there'll be kickback somewhere down the line, campaign contributions or the like, in order to further both of our efforts at this point. I'm waiting to see exactly how open the final bidding, the final proposals are, and how they are accepted at this particular time. But it doesn't look good at the moment.
Well, you go back to a similar situation just up the road in Boston. A few years ago, you had that, there was some sort of small municipal project they called, what is it, the Big Dig?
The Big Dig.
The Big Dig, yeah. And it went so well, we hired their head of Department of Transportation.
Yay.
Nice.
But, the Greenway project in Boston has been something that's been analyzed. A vision was created, open meetings, people were informed. There's always going to be, politics and personal involvement. I'm not so naive as to think that can be eliminated, but I'm trying to think of it as a ham and egg, or as a civilian on the streets. The last time I saw even, the little model that they usually build with, toothpicks and things like that, to tell us what it's going to be. I would posit that the average Rhode Islander has no idea what land is involved and what they're even thinking of.
Oh, and I would agree. And I think for Providence, obviously, this should be all good taxable properties. And the idea that there would be large parks or the like, or large free areas, is a real problem given our financial stake in this particular city. We have a large park. We have Roger Williams Park. Nobody's yet suggesting selling that off, although I haven't checked the mayor's Twitter account today. So
be careful. Don't give him any ideas.
Well, with this mayor, don't we usually find out something's being closed when the RFP has been published?
Something like that, yes.
Right, okay, just for the record.
But this property needs to go onto the tax rolls. It needs to be held by industry that can produce jobs for us at this point, and that's what we're really looking at.
Now, compare that to the Superman building. And I just hate the fact that we use the word Superman and iconic in every conversation we have about that. It's not the Superman building.
Well, it's not the Superman building, but it is a gorgeous building.
Sure, in sort of a Gothic kind of 50s retro black and white kind of way.
Yeah. But
much like the way the pyramids are gorgeous buildings, and it's about as useful as a pyramid at this particular time.
Right. And clearly now you've got our own, version of the Iran-Iraq war here with now the High Rock people suing Bank of America and countersuits, and, which really makes me happy.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Anytime someone sues Bank of America, I'm happy.
I mean, I can't think of two more particularly loathsome groups of people than them. So I say have at it. And, you talked about Darwinian atmosphere before. I
want to see a cage match.
Yeah, steel cage death match.
Like I said, if the price gets low enough, we could be looking at one coalition way.
Yeah.
We could broadcast right from the top.
But...
Well, eventually the price of that will drop enough so that somebody will jump into it. It's not going to get torn down.
It would make a great bohemian, gothic, punk rock nightclub. Just the top floor.
It would make a whole bunch of interesting things.
But so you counterpoint the need to put that on the tax rolls, and yet this insatiable desire by the state of Rhode Island and the city of Providence to create more office space for the state. What's your vision of the Superman building, and in terms of approach, how does that match up with what the 195 Commission should be doing?
Well, we can't subsidize further private enterprise. I mean, we can't give tax breaks at this particular time. There are proposals, I think, that I've looked at where you could almost be a partner. That is, rather than forgiving taxes or abating taxes, at the back end you pick up the taxes again. Okay, we won't collect taxes for the next 5 years, but then we collect a premium on your taxes later on in order to get projects started. At the very least, then, you have some equity, some interest in the building to get back your money eventually, if not this year. There may be no way around that type of boosting of the local economy and local businesses. But these giveaways have really left the city strapped with this particular time. The building will eventually drop enough in price that somebody will come in and do it. It's a solid enough building, even though it needs a lot of work done. I'm blocking on the name of the two towers that were the housing development that the Harvard owned in their portfolio that stood empty for a long time and finally is selling off. The prices just dropped to where they were reasonable prices at this particular time, and the building is filling up.
So an approach similar to the mall financing, where you had, in the case, it was a sales tax deferral. Right. Yeah, I believe that was with Nomura Capital at the time.
Correct.
And I think they were able to, as part of the agreement, remarket it. So they created a fungibility, if you will, to the note that created a free market environment around it in and of itself.
Yes.
You see that as a successful model.
I think. Yeah, I mean, you prefer not to have the city even attempt to pick winners and losers and to go into it. But there may be no way around at least minimum levels to boost some of this stuff. I certainly don't think we should give away money like 38 Studios, nor should we completely abate taxes like we've done on some of the other buildings at this particular, in the past.
Do you see that? And then, of course, you've got the Dynamo building. I mean, you've got, what's astonishing is you've got these great tracks of massive municipal FUBARs going on. How much money was put into the Dynamo building?
Right? It's a lot.
You've got 195 opening up wide amounts of space. In near collapse, if you listen to the lawsuit from Bank of America of the Superman building, and you're actually giving me in this show really the first any sort of vision and what to do about that, because they're all related. If you don't approach them all in terms of some sort of master plan, you're ultimately doomed to the kind of chaos that we've had. I mean, I've lived in the state long enough to remember what's the building across from the Dynamo, and that was going to say Providence.
Oh yeah, I can't remember.
Right, there was some sort of mall they were going to build.
Corliss,
not Corliss, but Laura Ashley used to be in there. And
yeah,
it's right.
Yeah.
whose role should it be to develop that kind of vision? Is that an executive role, or should it be continually deferred to